Ladies and gentlemen, prepare your hearts. I am having a conversation with a girl with a phenomenal name, the best name to ever exist. Jasmine Holmes. Yeah, basically, our moms had really great taste in names. But I am starting this conversation because I always like to walk in integrity when it comes to the podcast. I really want to bring in guests who I know in some personal capacity. And then every so often, there comes this opportunity for me to say, well, this is just irrefreaking-zistable. And I want to walk through why this process worked. So a few weeks ago, having, the typical stroll through Instagram, and every single day, multiple times a day, I get in and I respond to my direct messages. Side note, if you think somebody else is answering my direct messages, it's not, it's really me. And I get a really conversational, fun, sweet, directed and personal direct message from, a girl by the name of Jasmine. So then we have a quick witty banter. Let's talk about the wittiness. And then I pop on over to her Instagram profile. So now let's get into the strategy. I am or could be a consumer. I could be, I don't know, a podcast host. I could be a fellow entrepreneur. And with a matter of seconds and then minutes, and then, a few more minutes after that, I quickly understood who she was, what she was about, and the value that she offered. In addition to all of those things, I clearly understood the benefits she was providing for her clients. So I could not think of somebody better to come in and explain the exact experience that I had because, we have somebody here talking about pricing. And beyond getting to the point of pricing, you must first captivate somebody's attention, clearly display the value, the benefits, and who you are. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome Jasmine Holmes to the Jasmine Star Show.
Woo! Thank you so much. I'm actually, I don't often get speechless, as I'm sure you are exactly the same, but it's quite funny that sitting there listening to this and watching you speak the words on my screen, I'm sitting there going, oh, yes, another episode of the Jasmine Star podcast. Oh, wait, she's talking about me.
It's me.
Oh my God, that's me.
Oh, I am so happy you're here. And the thing I really want to talk about is what this journey is and was. Because far before we could ever talk about pricing, which is your love language, your jam, and very close to my heart, I love a good pricing chat. I love a good sales chat. I love where pricing, sales, strategy, and social media all come in. It's kind of what I call pricing, strategy, social, sales. Come on now. Okay, but let's get everybody on the same page. How did you go from being a graphic designer to a pricing strategist?
So I believe that the best way that someone can teach is once they know. And I am someone who has been 14 years in my design career. I have traveled from state to state in Australia, as you can possibly tell by the Australian accent. But also I've been in literally hundreds of different businesses in both freelance and employment capacity. And through all of those different experiences and different interactions with businesses, the common thread for my learning was understanding and kind of taking apart the way that they do business so that I can learn, so that I can know, so that I can share. I truly believe, and this is something that my dad brought me up on, is that you need to be big enough to serve someone, but small enough to know them. And so to be able to learn as much as possible so that I can then share that with someone else that I maybe needed, the person that I needed 5 years ago, it was really important for me to kind of learn as much as I could so that I could share. And so I've been a graphic designer, and I would probably call myself closer to a design superwoman now. I fly in and fix problems and fly away until my clients need me again.
Superwoman. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the good thing about a superwoman, and I believe that we are all creative superheroes that are in this creative industry, a lot of the times we don't see our own capes because we're too busy fighting design crimes. And so it's an opportunity for everyone to kind of realize that you might not see your magic, but others do. And that was what kind of led me down the pricing path, because, there's so many wonderful courses that teach how to design, but there's not as many that teach how to price, because we were taught how to use a pen tool and a brush. But we weren't taught how to put a dollar amount on that skill, that passion, but also to understand the value of what we're providing as a creative, because we are uniquely wonderful beings, kind of like unicorns that can come in and do these sort of things. But finding out how to price that and how to connect that not intrinsically to our self-worth, but to the worth that we're generating was really important to me.
Okay, so there's quite a bit to unpack. But first, I want to give a shout out to your dad who says, "We must be big enough to serve and small enough to know." Was that his quote?
Yeah. And so
that's so good.
he's
So
a
good.
wonderful, and that's always been the way that I was brought up. Both my parents have this mentality of, once you're big enough to and grown to a certain point, you then share with others, you then share the experience, and you also reflect the thing that you seek. So if you seek generosity, reflect it back. If you seek knowledge, reflect it back. And it's all about that reciprocity, I guess.
I love that. There is power and humility in that. And then one thing I want to note and just like kind of pull out what strongly came up to the surface for me was when you had said that we're taught to use a pen or a brush. In my case, you learn how to use a camera, and sometimes I would use the camera as almost like a shield. Like if I just got better with my camera, I would have a more successful business. And there are many times, like if I just got better, creating dog collars or having jewelry, if I just became a better course creator, I would then become more profitable. So let's first talk. I kind of want to bust a few objections in your line of work, in your experience. As you went through and created yourself as a pricing authority, do you notice that there are some industries or businesses that struggle more with pricing than others?
I believe that largely it's anyone who thinks that that enjoying the work that they do acts as a currency. So anyone in the
oh, snap. She's coming in hot. Like, I just want to, can you please repeat that again?
Well, I'll kind of rephrase it in a statement of, the fact that you enjoy your job doesn't mean that it is acting as a currency. It's not a currency, or it's not a discount code that's automatically applied at checkout when someone works with you. You're allowed to enjoy what you do and charge well for it.
Okay. Thank you for listening to the Jasmine Star Show. We're done. No,
Thank
okay.
you. Goodbye.
Okay. So we basically said that it's not a matter of an industry or a type of business. It's more of like a mindset of who you
Absolutely.
see struggling. So if we then know that pricing is associated to mindset, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see business owners when it comes to pricing? But in my mind and your mind, because we speak the same language when it comes to pricing, is pricing and mindset are interrelated. So what are some of those big mistakes that you see business owners making when it comes to pricing?
So from a very young age, we are taught that when we see a price tag on something, the first thing we think of immediately is, can I afford this? And the problem that I see across the board with business owners, with creatives, with anyone who is charging for a service, is that they are taking that mindset into that process. And so instead of, when they charge a number and seeing it, that it's like, okay, this is what they're paying, they're clicking into that mindset of, can I afford this? So if there's one like overarching theme, it's stop pricing your work like it's coming out of your own pocket, because it's not. It's coming out of the client's pocket or a budget that has been allocated for a genius like you. They want you to do well. They want you to perform and be able to come up with the creative solutions that they either can't or don't want to come up with for themselves. That's massively valuable. You are providing a service that is not just about your enjoyment, but as a creative professional, as a design professional in a lot of the situations, you are creating or providing a service that is valuable to help them make money. And so therefore you should probably be too.
So don't price yourself according to what you can afford to pay.
Yes.
Oh, yes. man, I could not agree more. I know that when I started my very first career as a photographer, I wanted to move into the luxury market. And that mindset shift of disassociating what I could pay versus what a client could pay was so powerful, because the minute that I stopped being like the moat, the minute I stopped being the dam, it opened pathways. And then all of a sudden, I started being like a revenue attractor. And then all of a sudden, I started holding myself differently, and I started conducting meetings differently. And lo and behold, I did not have to like close a sale. The sale was closing as a result of desire and less of price. So thank you for that. So when we kind of come back down to this mindset thing, I think pricing really does come down to knowing your worth, and then changing the mindset to believing that people need what you have to offer. Now, whenever you come across somebody who says, well, I'm not sure if they need it, or it's more of a luxury item, or it's like people don't wake up and they think these things. So one thing that you had written on Instagram, if you would allowed me to read, quote, the reason you can't see your own superpowers is because they come so easily to you. A superhero can't see their own cape when they're using their powers. Why is it important to recognize your superpowers when setting your prices?
Because just because it comes easily to you, I'm going to let the boys pass so that it doesn't record.
Oh, great. So, Christy, Addison, we will edit that part out. We need to
Thank you,
hear
my darling.
this queen with this response.
So I think that as creatives, we've put in the 10,000 hours worth of work to be able to become the professional or the expert or the champion of our own creativity. And a lot of the times, one of the biggest objections I hear is, oh, well, it's easy. It's easy for you. It's not easy for them.
Mm-hmm.
It may be really a simple thing to throw together a layout or take a photo or create something that didn't exist yesterday for you. But their brain is not your brain. Their brain can't actually work out how to do it. And so that's why they've asked you. And I think that we discount that those 10,000 hours and go, oh, well, that was just play. No, you were exercising that creative muscle. You were making it so that you were able to do the thing really well when the time came and when the time called for it. I feel like we kind of go, oh no, it's easy, whatever, it's fine. But it's easy for you, not for them.
Mm. So when we talk, you've made a lot of references, and I think you and I come from a similar school of thought, in that I believe every entrepreneur, regardless of what it is you do, is a creative, in that you must be a creator to have a creation. Now, oftentimes I'll hear somebody who say, well, Jasmine, I sell Excel spreadsheet templates. How is that being a creative? How is that being a creator? What is your response to something like that?
A creative is someone who solves problems in a way that's non-traditional.
Come on. Come on. Yes. Yes. We drink from the same well. That is exactly 100% of what I believe. We solve, say it again.
So a creative is someone who solves a problem in a non-traditional way, in a different way, in an unexpected way. And, this comes back to that whole, because I enjoy my job, then it should be a discount code automatically applied. Mm-hmm. There is someone out there that absolutely froths an Excel spreadsheet and can throw in all of those sum and conjugate and all of the extra kind of functions to be able to do the thing really much faster than someone who doesn't have those skills. Same with, there's someone that absolutely loves to teach children. There's someone who absolutely loves to clean. There's someone who absolutely loves to mow a good lawn. It's really about, just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean that you don't get paid for it, but also you might have your own unique way or your own unique approach to it because of the experiences that you've had leading up to it. So for me, I actually uniquely look at many different things that aren't necessarily creative. My dad he is an entrepreneur. He is a small business owner. He's actually a butcher and has been a butcher for my entire life. And I actually worked in the butcher shop from age 8 to age 22. And I learned a lot of his business skills, the business skills that he imparted on me. And it was really kind of working out, well, that's what he's passionate about. That's what his unique way of selling things or solving problems could be. As simple as, well, how do you solve a Christmas meal for 20 people where 3 of them are vegans and 4 of them have a pork allergy? And so how do you solve that problem to be able to serve a beautiful meal for a family? And it's bringing people together with the one thing, which was the meal. And so it's understanding what your creative solution or creative problem solving ability is to be able to go and put your unique touch on that situation.
I love that. I love it. And I love how you personally made it, because I can picture your dad as a butcher and his creative solving capabilities. And then I think of other listeners and their creative solving possibilities. And I like the example. I like how real it felt. Now, when we talk about being uniquely qualified to solve a problem in a very unique way, and being compensated for it, and then we're not associating what we can pay with our pricing, what then do you, for somebody who's listening right now and be like, okay, I'm on board, Jasmine, but how do I know if my pricing's reasonable? Like, how do we go there? How do you respond to something like that?
So I think it's a kind of a 2-part response, in that reasonable is subjective. And so if you are trying to work out your pricing for yourself, firstly, make sure that you're covering your own expenses, your own capabilities, your own whatever you're bringing to the table. So that would be either working out what your hourly rate is for your own personal self, as well as taking into account like market rates and what other people are charging to direct but not define your rate.
To direct and not define. I sometimes I pause you, Jasmine, because the listener, I really want to hone in on a couple of things. She is saying to, number one, cover your costs, associate perhaps an hourly rate for what it is that you want to do. And there's no such thing as the right hourly rate. It's what you deem to be appropriate. And then number two, to look at what the market charges, AKA your competitors, to direct and not define. Just because they are charging X does not mean you're like, therefore you must or you shouldn't charge X. It's just as a general barometer to measure where you are in the scope of the market. Next step.
Well, on that, I want to kind of expand on a little bit, is that one of the common things that I hear from creatives, from designers, from photographers, from anyone who is going out and charging in the early stages of their career, they find out what everyone else is charging, and then they use this line, okay, I'll charge that, but a little less.
That's what I did. Oh, come on. I'm not going to hate. I'm going to be honest. This is the podcast. I was 100% what I did when I started my photography career. I was like, you, and then $300 less. And
that's fine for when you are trying to work it out. But as long as you then go, okay, maybe that's tested the waters and made me work out where I can start as a benchmark.
Correct.
But I hope that it kind of helps you and prompts you to think, why? Why are you less valuable than those other people? And is the act of charging a little less than your competitors to be able to get the competitors' work? Therefore, are you chasing clients who are going to be looking for cheaper work? Or is it so that you are like, are you then having an influence on the industry expectation? So therefore, are you bringing down kind of what the expectation is? And I really do feel like when we're all charging, if we're charging similar or same rates, as long as we can justify them and bring the value and understand what the expectation is, delivering the rate for whatever it is that we're doing, that's the process, is working it out for yourself, understanding what others are around you. And then the third part would be testing. Test it out. Just test a little bit. Test it on a client, test it on a pre-existing client or someone who you know, and try and understand, okay, does this work for this situation? Does this work for that situation? Because if you say you test out a rate that feels high to you and they say yes, well, next time you're not going to feel like it's going to be a question. So then you might understand that by doing that particular job, you raised your value for the next job. So therefore you can charge more.
Okay. But what happens when that person says no. How many no's do you get before you realize that the market isn't ready for that price?
I think that a no is actually a much more powerful thing than a yes, because it gives you an indicator of where you can be shifting, and it opens up the conversation floodgates to actually research why. Why is that a no? Why? What is the disconnect between what I believe I'm providing and how that value translates when it comes from my hands and what their expectation is? And so you take that with a grain of salt to understand, okay, maybe they're basing it on their previous experiences. Maybe there's an education gap or a lack of knowledge of what you're actually providing. Or are you over providing? And I think this is a really interesting kind of bit to get into, is that, are you providing more than the client expects or wants? And is it justified?
So one of the things that I discovered as on through my pricing journey, now I've had multiple businesses and iterations within that and pivots. And so I've sold products, services, personal branding, now as CEO of a SaaS company. And the first things that I started learning when it came to pricing specifically in my business was there was a point where I did what, so the pricing journey was, what is the industry standard in my area? And then lower by $300. And what I decided to do is, after I booked my first 5 clients, I raised my prices $300. And for every 3 clients I booked thereafter, I raised my prices $300. That was just the rule. I knew I was starting very, very, very low in my pricing, and I wanted to quickly move out of that like bargain barrel photographer. But there came a point to where I started realizing that I hit that $5,000 mark. So I started off at $1,000, and then about a year and a half later, I was charging $5,000. And that kind of felt like I got to like a point, and I couldn't get past that point. And so I took a step back, and this is where I'm wondering where people might be feeling a little stuck. And I'd love to get your opinion, and then you could tell me that I did it wrong, and I wouldn't care. I have zero attachment to it, but then you tell me how to like reframe it for all of our listeners, so like they don't repeat the mistake that I did. And so what happened was, I was around that $5,000 mark. And so what I took a step back and I realized there's something about the price that they feel like they're not getting something of value within that frame. So instead of being like, oh, now I need to just go back to what I was charging and then never raise my price again, I started understanding what were the value needs of my changing client. Because the client who was paying me $1,500 is looking and needing something different when I'm charging $5,000. And then when I would charge $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 for my services. And so I was looking for items that they found valuable so that I could still justify the price and book clients thereafter. What do you say to that approach? And then is there something that's a little bit more refined according to your methodology?
Honestly, what you did was perfect, because it means that you were what you did was the right thing, because it may feel like it's in the moment a little bit janky, because you're like, oh, well, what if my last client comes back and now they know, and it feels weird. But what you're actually doing is you're responding to market demand. You are scaling as you grow. You are increasing your prices in accordance with the value that you are creating, because I can guarantee you that the standard of work that you were producing for the $1,500 client was very different to the $5,000 client. You were creating and providing a different kind of service and a different kind of result. I personally myself have looked back on old jobs that I charged much less for, and whilst I'll sit there and go, okay, that was then, this is now, I can see that I provide differently from then to now. We also are in the business of making money, because money is not the root of all evil. It just makes things a little bit easier. And I feel like if we're responding to market demand, it means that we're recognizing our own wealth, and we're recognizing our own skills and value, but we're also then translating that to our ideal customer. And that's the other thing, is that the ideal customer that you're attracting at those 2 different price points will be very different as well, because they have different needs or different expectations.
Correct.
And you might be able to, like, once you are hitting that ceiling and you're going, oh, okay, I can't really get any more, I definitely recommend taking a step back and understanding, okay, what kind of client am I still attracting? The same kind of client, but expecting them to pay a higher rate. There are so many people in the world so many potential clients that you can find someone else that will pay that. And for this, I actually have a little bit of a story.
Please.
So if you have followed me before or you've experienced any of my email list newsletters, I talk a little bit about this carrot story. So there's a local burger bar around the corner from me that used to be there, and it was, typical burger bar, beef, chicken, side of chips, and it was an awesome little burger bar. And they had on the menu a carrot ceremony. And reading that, you would go, what is a carrot ceremony? That sounds so weird, but it's $2. It's $2. So why wouldn't you get it? So you go, okay, I'll have a beef burger, a chicken burger, and a carrot ceremony, not knowing what you're getting into. And so you would sit down, your meal would come out, and then the owner would come out and peel a carrot in front of you. That's all it was. That's all it was. The carrot ceremony was this.
Did you get to keep the
peeling
carrot?
Yes, yes. So you have this carrot peeled in front of you. And so what the owner did,
brilliant.
What the owner did was he then increased the price by 50 cents each time someone bought it. Now, this ended up becoming this thing that if you took friends to the burger bar, you'd go, hey, get the carrot ceremony, because you're trying to he's creating this theatrical thing around just a carrot. Now, carrots are $1 a bag and you get a dozen in there. So he's making a great return on investment.
Oh my God.
But by the time that we're talking every single time it got increased, he even had someone order it takeaway, and he came in and peeled it at their dining room table. It was phenomenal. So by the time the burger bar closed and he moved on, a carrot ceremony was $36. And people were still requesting it. So that is a perfect example of one, creating a sense of entertainment value, responding to the market demand, and also creating something that is joyful. So if you can create value in a shared experience, create joy, and respond to market demand, you can be creating your own carrot ceremony with whatever creativity.
And look at all that profit, Jasmine. Look at all the profit. But beyond that, because my mind works in sales and it works in pricing, but specifically how we leverage social media. So what this business owner was doing was creating an opportunity for buzz, because in the beginning, people were like, well, what in the world is this? But then once word spread, the expectation then became he's going to come and peel a carrot. So imagine if he was doing that here and now, people would whip out their phones and then tag the burger bar, and people were like, I want to see, I need a carrot. I need a carrot. It's just the scalability of something so silly that people are attributing value to is so powerful. I love that story. I wish this burger bar was still, I'm a vegetarian. I would want the carrot ceremony just so I can eat the carrot at the burger bar. But if it was around, I would absolutely love it. I am obsessed with that story. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay. So I think a couple things that I want to address that I think we might be getting questions hereafter is, I have a response to this, but I would like to hear your response first. So somebody is saying, after hearing the increasing price of the carrot ceremony, and then after hearing my story about the increasing price of every 3 weddings I booked, I raised my pricing $300, to when somebody says, okay, Australian Jasmine, what happens when a former client wants to come back or refers a friend and you're at a wildly different price just a year later? What is your response? How would you as a business owner, how would you coach a business owner to respond to that?
Sure. So all of my clients have an understanding that if they share me with someone else, the script kind of goes, this is Jasmine. She's wonderful. She's fantastic. She's going to solve your problems, but she's expensive. And expensive is a bit of in the past, it's been a negative word, but I find it more neutral because it actually is more indicative of she's expensive, therefore you should aspire to be working with her. Therefore, you should be able to create and understand and have an expectation of what the value is there. If a client comes back to you that is pre-existing and you have changed your prices, it's a conversation, it's a communication, because they are a business owner too. They would expect and have situations where other businesses or other parts of their supply chain increases their prices. So it's a conversation, and your clients aren't just people that breeze into your life and breeze out. They aren't just passing people. Your clients should be people that you are invested in. You're invested in their journey. You're partnering with them to understand what their business needs are. And again, big enough to know, big enough to serve, small enough to know. And so you want to have those connections. But when a recommendation comes through, it's not necessarily that they would have communicated what price is when it comes to their friends or their connections. They might not have had this is what we paid. And if they have, it's very unlikely that they are looking at the exact same solution, because they are unique businesses.
This is a real example.
Sure.
And so let's say that you're coaching me through this, and this is a real example. I shot my first wedding for $1,000. And then a year later, like 12 months later, I was charging base for the same thing, $3,500. So the brother of the bride reached out and said, Jasmine, Christina just celebrated her 1-year anniversary, and I proposed to my girlfriend, and we can't wait to work with you. I sent him my prices, and he had said, oh, things have changed a lot. I was wondering if you would be able to offer the same price that you did to Christina. True story. Now let's pretend I am your client and I need you to coach me with what to say back to him. And then I'll tell you what I actually said. And then let's see how far off we are.
That's a difficult one. And I feel like I have been actually in this position myself. I had a client come back much longer time frame. When I had a client come back recently who back 7 years ago was charging $35 an hour, and I'm now $200. And that was a big shift. And so we had to have a conversation. So for this situation, I would first ask yourself, do you want it? If you want it, that's great. If you don't want it, that's fine too. And so going into this conversation, understanding that there may be some negotiation back and forth. You are not, I beg of you, please do not cave right back down to price matching who you were. Because who you were and what you delivered, and who you are now and what you deliver, are two different things. When you have this conversation with this new client, keep it open, keep it honest, keep it forthright. Say things along the lines of, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you really enjoyed and really loved what I created for your sister, I think it was. In the time since in this past year, I have had the privilege of shooting this many weddings. And I can tell you right now, there has been so many things that I have learned over this time that have helped me solve problems on the fly, that have helped me be able to capture more moments and provide a better service than when I started. I'm open to having a conversation, and you might choose something that is somewhere in the middle, potentially closer to your 3,500, but not smack bang in the middle, in that kind of top range area. But also you might be able to provide things that bridge that gap. So you might be able to say, since then, I'm actually also offering albums, I'm offering prints. You might be able to offer complementary services that will make up and bridge that gap so that you can provide that service. It can feel like, oh, well, they fought me on this price and therefore I shouldn't drop. But if you enter every single interaction understanding that both you and the other person are human and are trying to achieve a common goal, then that's going to be much better for your negotiation skills.
So good. So good. The reality is like, it was pretty close to what you had said. I had reached out to him and I explained how fortunate I was to work with his family in the past, and congratulations on getting married. And I said, since her wedding had transpired or concluded, That was my very first wedding that I had ever shot. And so since then, I had invested in education. I had invested in mentorship. I had shot X amount of weddings since that time. And as a result, the demand for my services has increased to such a degree that to lower my prices wouldn't be in the best interest of my business, but I would be more than willing to send him a recommendation. And I added in there and I said, I guess we can both agree that when Christina booked me, she was betting on a stock that over time increased in so much value. Let me know. But it
I
was
am
just
so impressed. Like if I had coached you on that, I'd be like, I'm just gonna go and have a cry now. I'm so proud.
No, but the good thing was like I did give him some really amazing recommendations. But if I was not confident and if I didn't have demand for the 3,500, another unique way to work with pricing, because as my business got bigger, there were families that I actually did heavily want to work with for a lot of different reasons, but mostly it was business strategy. And my prices might have ranged beyond that, but I felt like a long-term relationship with that social circle would pay off in dividends, and it ended up doing. But so for instance, I'd raised my price to one sister and then the other sister was getting married, and the mom had asked if she would be able to pay the same price. And so what I had said is you would be able to see the same price, but it would be less hours of shooting in the day and not include one of the albums. So
Yes.
I was
and so
able
you're
to
negotiating
absolutely,
the deliverables and not the dollars. And
absolutely,
that's brilliant.
absolutely. Okay, so I have two more things that were kind of like round this out for somebody who's listening and they just are really digging the Jasmine and Jasmine conversation, but they're like, how do I set prices? Like, where does one begin? Do you have any tips, insights into like, okay, let's get gritty. How do we do this?
Start with your own unique recipe, because no one is going to have the exact same setup, situation, lifestyle, everything to you. And if so, you should probably find out where they made that clone. Let me know where they came from, because I would
Me
love
too.
a clone. It'd be fantastic. But I don't know if the world has space for a third hat wearing Jasmine. But what I would say is start with your unique recipe. So your own pricing recipe takes the salary that you want to make, that you want to take home each year. That is the dollars in your bank. Then you account for all of your expenses, both personal and business. And then you divide that by your working hours. And that's going to put a dollar amount on the time that you spend. Not necessarily what you would charge someone, because I personally believe that hourly rates should not make up the bulk of your business, because they're going to cap your ability to earn.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can understand and know your unique value of your own time, and then start building business structures or pricing structures around that, that take into account materials, that take into account when you're handling projects that is kind of like a non-time dependent service, as well as accounting for value in the kind of end result, that is how I would largely charge or understand what the value of my time is to price my creative services. That was a lot.
And that was so good. Thank you. We started this conversation with understanding that pricing is so intercorrelated with mindset. And you recently spoke about the lies we tell ourselves that will lead to undercharging for our products or services. Can you explain a few of those lies and why they're untrue and why they're detrimental to our businesses?
So the lies that we tell ourselves, this was a really kind of personal post that I put up, because they're all lies that I've told myself too. They're it's funny.
Can I read a few from the Instagram
Please,
post? Okay.
please do.
Okay. Well, actually, this is pulled from an Instagram post a few months ago in October. If I charge less than my competition, I'll win the job. Line number 2, the skills I have are common. They aren't worth more. Number 3, everyone is going to think I'm selfish for charging high. 4, I'm not experienced enough to charge more than I do now. And 5, I'm going to charge what I would be comfortable paying. How are these lies? Because I'm pretty sure I have thought 4 of the 5 for many years. How do you feel they have been detrimental to businesses?
I feel they are the excuses that we make for ourselves.
Ooh.
That If I haven't learned enough, I haven't grown enough, I'm not good enough. And it comes back to mindset, it comes back to understanding. The first one of please repeat the first one.
Yeah. No, I have it pulled up right here. It says, if I charge less than my competition, I'll win the job.
So if you charge less than your competition, you'll win the job. It kind of then looks at, well, does that mean that that client is only first kind of priority of the job is that it costs little, which means that they're not necessarily valuing skill.
100%.
It means that they're sitting there going, well, the most important thing is that it's cheap.
Yes.
That's not a client you want.
No. But
here, not a client you want at all.
Can I add a little bit before we get into the other stuff? Is when the clients who I was booking on the lower end were booking me because of price, they trusted me less. And when the client trusts me less, they began to micromanage, make demands, tell me how to do the thing that I was there to do. And so all of a sudden I became a hired hand instead of doing the thing that really lit me up and the thing that made me feel special. Do you feel like you've encountered the same?
Yeah, most definitely. And I've even had times where that sort of situation does happen. And I've had to be brave, because I want to let you guys know that being brave in this industry is really important. Be brave, ask them point blank. So why did you hire me?
Oh yeah.
What, like, oh, yeah. If you've hired me to be this professional in my industry, but you feel like you need to do my job for me, then why are you wasting your money and your time and your effort and your energy if you're just going to do it? And it can be a hard conversation to have with a client. It can be a difficult one to have, but someone who doesn't value the skills or values price over skills is actually one of the red flags that I look for and try to scope out and kind of dig through when I'm first talking about to a client, because it's really important to catch those early, not because that means that they will never work together, but it's something that will take time and energy to work out with that client. You want to create and have a client who trusts you implicitly. It seems and feels like that is unattainable, but I can tell you right now, I have clients on my roster who we don't have conversations about price because they know that what they'll be charged. And I know that that sounds scary, but they'll call and they'll say, I need this done. Just get it done and bill me, because I trust whatever the solution that you're creating for. They've got to trust in me that I'm going to price it accordingly. And I've got to trust in them that they're going to understand the value of what I create. These conversations and these interactions that you're having with your clients and your customers are going to have to be built and based on trust if you are expecting and wanting to have higher paying, more valuable clients.
Okay. Can I share something that I had learned early in that journey, specifically when I was hired as a creative?
Please.
I would sit with my clients. We would have like not an onboarding meeting. It was just like a preliminary meeting before they would book me as a photographer. And one of the first questions that I would ask would be like, can I ask what stuck out about my work? Why did you decide to reach out and book this meeting? And oftentimes they would say a litany of things. Oh, I liked how you made people feel comfortable, or I liked the light, or I liked the candid moments, whatever they would. And I would make sure and jot down, but it was very natural for me to take notes. Wedding days, I'm a written processor. So I would write down the words that they were associating. And then if ever at a point in the future, because you had said it could be a difficult conversation, I started noticing that it doesn't have to be if you come prepared. Because if I understood why I was originally booked, and if at somewhere in the process, perhaps after the engagement session, they see their photos and like, oh, but my arm looks fat, and oh, can you cover up my freckles? The thing I come back to is like, when we met on September 12th, one of the things that you said was that you appreciated the candid look, and you appreciate. So I'm using their words back to them to say, if this is what attracted you to my work, then I need you to understand that this is part of the work. And every single time they were like, you're right. You're right. So it's using their words, going back to them, and it doesn't have to be a conversation. You're just literally holding up a mirror to the thing that they desire and removing themselves from being ultra critical or micromanaging.
And that's why it's really important when you are doing the onboarding and briefing process in the start of a conversation and start of a communication with a client, that you are listening, you are understanding, you are questioning, you are recognizing, and you're not just asking, oh, what colors, what fonts. You are asking questions that actually seek to understand, such as, well, what would the value of this be if it wasn't a problem? What are the indicators of success that you are looking for within this project? Start really listening, leave space for answers, because I am very much a person that's like, and I want to finish the sentence for the person who's having the conversation.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. But, you know, a lot of the times, leaving space for answers is really important.
It is.
Because we, as people who like to finish the sentences for other people, sometimes need to stop and take a second to let the objection that the client has created and proposed set in, because they might have thought it, but when they say it, it feels different. And then they realize that they're like, oh no, I don't agree with the words I just said. And so, yeah, giving that space and that understanding of, okay, take notes, come prepared, be ready. And if that means creating a notebook, or after every meeting, or after every interaction, or even after every project, doing a quick response on your phone, or notes on your phone, or some way to document what the success was of this thing, so that you can then generate that for the next thing.
Correct. Jasmine, I feel like we can talk all day about pricing.
Can we please? Let's keep going.
We could talk all day about pricing in sales, but I want to loop it back and tie it back full circle with what your dad had said, because today you were big enough to share, and you were small enough to know. You were big enough to share all of the knowledge that you've accumulated over 14 years. And then you were small enough to really identify with the creator as well as the creation. For people who want to go deeper and get to know you more and dig into all of your pricing superhero-ness, where do they go? How can they find you?
So if you are into pricing puns and a lot of pie related content,
and alliterations.
Legitimately, I started in branding, and that doesn't mean that I can forget my own. So if you're into that sort of thing, head to JH Designs on Instagram. I am very active on there. And also I have a special serving for the listeners of the Jasmine Star Show. So if you head to easyasPiePricing.com/Jasmine Star, you can actually access my pricing calculator, which takes exactly the formula that I talked about before, taking your salary, adding your expenses, mixing it all in, and then portioning it into your hourly. And that will actually generate exactly what dollar amount you should be putting on your time. So that URL again is easyasPiePricing.com/Jasmine Star.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being generous. And please tell your dad, the butcher, I said hi.
Oh, I will. And he will probably say, nice to meet you.
I appreciate it. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. That was so fun.